She yanked the silk banner so hard the iron arbor my late wife and daughter built together groaned like it was crying out in pain, scattering hand-painted roses across the mulch like they were yesterday's garbage. This space is officially reassigned to the Spring Unity celebration, darling, Deborah Hargrove purred, clipboard gleaming under the California sun, not even blinking as the fabric dragged through the dirt. Community comes first. Your little family gathering simply can't override the collective good. I stood there in my faded hoodie, phone already recording, and didn't raise my voice. I just smiled that small tight smile I'd perfected 2 years ago when the same HOA newsletter branded me, the bitter widower stirring trouble, for daring to ask where the beautification fees actually went. Deborah thought she was killing a wedding. She had no idea she just handed me the forensic keys to burn her entire little kingdom down. My name is Ryan Kessler. Former forensic accountant. Not the kind who wears a cape or flashes a badge. Just the guy who used to chase missing millions through spreadsheets until my wife's cancer diagnosis made me trade boardrooms for backyard roses. Willow Creek Estates looked perfect on paper. Manicured lawns, smiling neighbors, the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened because the rules wouldn't allow it. Except the rules were whatever Deborah said they were on any given Tuesday. She'd been president for 6 years, always in pastel blazers and pearls, always talking about unity and standards, while her daughter Lacey's event company, Eternal Bloom Events, somehow booked the best community spaces every single weekend. Funny how that worked. I didn't argue when Deborah snapped the banner off the arbor I'd welded myself. I just kept filming. Every frame, every timestamp, every smug little twitch at the corner of her Botoxed mouth. You'll receive a $3,000 fine if this isn't cleared by noon, she added, slapping a printed flyer against her thigh like it was holy scripture. The flyer said the garden was closed for urgent soil treatment. Soil treatment, my ass. I could see Lacey's crew already unloading folding chairs and burlap runners from a white van parked just outside the gate, logo sparkling in rose gold letters. My daughter Emily watched from the porch, wedding dress still hanging in the window behind her, the one she and her mom had picked out before the chemo took everything else. Emily didn't cry. She just looked at me with those same quiet eyes her mother had, and I knew what she was asking without words. Dad, are we really letting this happen again? Because it wasn't the first time. 2 years earlier after Sarah passed, I'd planted a small memorial vegetable patch in our front yard, tomatoes the kind she loved. Deborah sent a violation notice within 48 hours calling it visual clutter and unauthorized emotional displays. The neighborhood newsletter ran a little piece titled, Maintaining Standards in Difficult Times, complete with my name redacted but everyone knew. I paid the fine, ripped out the tomatoes, and smiled at the next block party like nothing happened. People whispered I was broken. Weak. The kind of guy who just took it. Perfect cover, really. Because while they laughed behind their Chardonnay, I was downloading every HOA bylaw, every meeting minute, every financial report they ever posted. Old habits from the forensic days. You don't chase embezzlers for 15 years without learning how to wait. That afternoon I walked the neighborhood the way I used to walk crime scenes, slow eyes everywhere. At the 4th house on Maple Lane, old Mrs. Alvarez opened the door with trembling hands. They did the same to my granddaughter's quinceanera, she whispered, pulling me inside before Deborah's golf cart could cruise by. Said the green space needed pest control. 2 hours later Lacey was setting up fairy lights for some couple paying $8,000. I photographed the old permit, the cancellation email timestamped 3 minutes after the pest control invoice was supposedly issued. Same pattern at the Ramirez house. Anniversary party killed for sprinkler repairs that never happened. At the Parkers, baby shower relocated to the parking lot because benches had mold. Every single canceled event involved someone who wasn't in Deborah's inner circle. Every single one got replaced by an Eternal Bloom booking the very next weekend. The photos on Lacey's website even used the same lighting angles. They hadn't just stolen the spaces. They'd stolen the memories and sold them back at premium rates. By sunset I had 6 more stories and a growing folder on my laptop labeled, Unity Day Lies. Emily sat beside me on the porch swing, dress still shimmering in the window like a ghost. They're wearing Mom's garden like a costume, she said quietly. I didn't answer with promises. Promises don't hold up in court. Timestamps do. I started cross-referencing. Every cancellation overlapped perfectly with the new Eternal Bloom listing. Even the flowers matched: white freesia, blush ranunculus, the exact combination Sarah had chosen for Emily's wedding. Deborah wasn't just enforcing rules. She was running a side hustle with community assets and daring anyone to prove it. The next morning, Warren Klein, the HOA treasurer for 7 quiet years, found me photographing the scraped patches where Deborah's crew had ripped out the arbor anchors without a single permit. He looked like a man who hadn't slept since the Reagan administration. "You're really doing this?" he asked, voice barely above the breeze. I kept snapping pictures. "Just the truth, Warren. Nothing more." He swallowed hard, then pulled a folded invoice from his cardigan. HOA deposit transfer, $1,800. Memo: garden unity setup. Paid straight to Eternal Bloom. "She called it a refund to save processing fees," he muttered. "We never voted on it. I signed because, well, she's Deborah. I didn't touch the paper. Just photographed it, timestamp intact." Warren's shoulders dropped like he'd been carrying the entire neighborhood. "I've got logs," he said. "Emails. Transfers. She keeps some offline, but I started backing up everything last year. In case she went too far." He looked at the empty arbor holes in the dirt. "I didn't think she'd go after your girls' day." I didn't comfort him. Comfort doesn't build cases. "Bring me what you have tonight," I said instead. Quietly. He nodded once, the kind of nod that seals a deal with your own conscience, and shuffled off. By midnight my file had grown teeth. Pattern after pattern. Cancelled events. Fake maintenance closures. Money routed through Lacey's LLC like it was a family trust. Deborah had even created a shell vendor, Southlight Contracting, to bill the HOA for arbor removal, and then pay the same amount straight into her daughter's account the same day. Racketeering with pastel stationery. Beautiful. The very next morning Lacey's crew rolled in at sunrise like they owned the deed. White trucks, no decals, men in black polos unloading tables while Lacey directed traffic in glossy heels and a branded jacket. Deborah arrived an hour later. Oversized sunglasses and that parade wave smile she practiced in every HOA mirror. She spotted me filming from the sidewalk and didn't miss a beat. "This is a community celebration, Ryan. Nothing personal. And recording contractors without consent? That's a violation, sweetheart." I handed her a printed copy of her own bylaws. Third-party vendors must be disclosed, board voted, listed 7 days in advance. Blank box where the listing should have been. She barely glanced. "Policy is being revised. As acting president, I have discretion." I smiled again. "Retroactively? Without minutes? Cute." She turned on her heel, calling over her shoulder. "Submit a complaint to the inbox. It'll be reviewed in standard order." Standard order. The same phrase she'd used when she killed Sarah's last charity walk. That afternoon the florist called by accident. Thought I was the delivery contact for Lacey's setup. I let her talk 30 seconds, long enough to confirm the order. Same coordinates, same white freesia and blush ranunculus, same silver dollar eucalyptus Sarah had chosen. "Wait, didn't I already do this venue last month for someone named Emily Kessler?" she murmured. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at Lacey's website where the exact same photos were now listed under Garden Bliss Rehearsal Package. $6,800 exclusive HOA venue. Fine print at the bottom. Any likeness to private installations is coincidental. Coincidental like a knife in the back wearing lipstick. I opened my old forensic hard drive that night, the one still engraved with my retired firm badge number, and started compiling. Every email. Every altered permit. Every cache screenshot of deleted bookings. Every neighbor statement. Warren delivered his Dropbox backup at 2 a.m. Like a spy dropping microfilm. "She changed the passwords yesterday," he whispered. "I think she knows something's coming." I didn't tell him I'd already tipped the district attorney's office, anonymously at first, then as a concerned citizen with a name. Lena Torres, one of my old trainees, now wearing the sharper suit. I gave her everything the same way any resident would. No favors. Just facts. Triple redundant timestamps. Air-gapped copies. Bulletproof. Deborah's next move came at 3:14 p.m. The following day, a community-wide email from a backup HOA account, unsigned but dripping with her perfume. The smear campaign conducted by select residents does not reflect the will of the board or the good of the neighborhood. Selective targeting of women-led organizations and harassment of volunteers will be addressed via civil litigation. Leadership remains committed to fair practice. Weaponize victimhood with the side of threat. Beautiful. Within an hour the replies flooded in, CCing the DA, the compliance auditor, each other. Mrs. Alvarez. My granddaughter's quinceañera was canceled for soil treatment. Same weekend Eternal Bloom posted an Instagram reel from our exact bench swing. Mr. Parker. I want a refund for the $150 vendor fee I paid last fall. Especially since your daughter catered the space for free that weekend. Truth spreads faster than bylaws once it smells blood. I spent the night mapping temporal offsets. Every teaser Lacey posted on her blog matched a sudden maintenance closure Deborah had rammed through. The cycle was elegant, predictable, almost artistic. Until it wasn't. Warren met me at dawn with one last photo, printed, not digital. Lacey standing beside our arbor 3 weeks before Deborah tore it down, measuring tape around her neck, mock floral frame leaning against the iron like she was already redecorating. Warren's nephew, the HOA landscaper, had snapped it and texted, "Thought this was Emily's thing." Warren never replied. Guilt looked good on him. By the time the emergency board meeting hit Thursday at 6 p.m., the sidewalk outside the community center looked like opening night at a Broadway takedown. Folding chairs snaked down the block. Neighbors clutched coffee and clipboards like pitchforks. Inside, the air hummed with that special static right before lightning. Deborah stood at the front table in full armor, pearls binder, smile dialed to 11. Warren sat pale but steady, folder in his lap. I walked in at 6:01 as just another resident. No uniform. No rank. Just the guy they called bitter for 2 years. Deborah tapped the mic. Thank you all for attending this month's community update. We'll begin with routine. No, I said, voice calm but carrying to the back row. The room froze. This meeting is no longer routine. This is now a matter of public record. I turned to the crowd. For over a year this board, under President Deborah Hargrove, has canceled approved events, falsified maintenance closures, and redirected community spaces straight into her daughter's LLC. Every denied wedding, every killed quinceañera, every relocated baby shower became another paid booking for Eternal Bloom events. Your fees. Your memories. Sold back to you at markup. Gasps rippled like a wave. Deborah's fingers whitened on the table edge. I held up the photo of Lacey measuring the arbor. Explain why your daughter was scouting this exact site weeks before you declared it urgent soil treatment. Her mouth open, closed. Board members on either side suddenly found the floor fascinating. Warren stood slowly. I was the treasurer, he said, voice cracking only once. I signed off on some of it. But I also saved everything. He opened the folder. 5 payments to fake vendors. 3 direct transfers to Eternal Bloom never disclosed to the board. A falsified removal fee for an arbor that had prior approval. Deborah finally snapped. These are half-truths. Twisted interpretations. You don't understand how event logistics work or how flexibility. I cut her off by sliding the Southlight contracting invoice across the table. Shell company. Same-day payout to your daughter. Flexibility looks a lot like racketeering when you run the numbers, Deborah. That was when Lena Torres walked in from the back, flanked by a court clerk and compliance officer. The room went graveyard quiet. Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. This is now an open inquiry under California Civil Code and nonprofit governance violations. President Hargrove, your leadership privileges are suspended effective immediately. You are not to access records, contact board members, or approve expenditures. She slid the sealed packet across the table. Deborah didn't speak. She just stood there, color draining like someone had pulled the plug on her entire personality. In the silence, I looked at Emily in the front row. She exhaled for the first time in weeks. Not triumph. Just release. The next 48 hours moved like a net cinching tight. HOA accounts frozen by noon the following day. Notices posted everywhere, community center, website, even the walking trail kiosks. Residents walked slower, read them twice, whispered finally. The garden stayed untouched. No chairs. No tents. Just the scent of roses and the ghost indentations where our arbor used to stand. I spent the morning coordinating witness statements, verifying every timestamp with Lena's team. Deborah wasn't done, of course. People like her never are. At 3:14 p.m., another email hit, same backup account, same victim script, now threatening lawsuits against harassers. It backfired spectacularly. Replies poured in with screenshots, old emails, even bank statements residents had kept, just in case. Truth, once oxygenated, burns hotter than any fine. The emergency board met that night under county supervision. 3 seats vacated on the spot. 2 members resigned before the gavel. Warren stayed. No applause, just the quiet dignity of a man who'd finally chosen the neighborhood over the clipboard. They reinstated Emily's permit retroactively. Cleared the arbor installation. Issued a written apology that nobody believed but everybody filmed. But the real win wasn't the paperwork. It was the turnout. Over 60 residents who finally believed it was safe to speak, because one guy had forced the locked doors open with nothing but patience and PDFs. 2 weeks later, the new arbor went up the morning before Emily's vow renewal and reclamation gathering. Not ornamental. Deliberate. Exposed steel, unpolished, etched by heat and time. I welded the rusted bolt we'd salvaged from the original footing right into the center joint. No plaque, no inscription, just raw iron that said we bend but we don't break. Neighbors showed up unasked. Curtis brought the power sander. Elaine hauled folding chairs. Even quiet Dan from Juniper Circle arrived with coolers and a speaker system. Word had spread. This wasn't just Emily's day anymore. It was the neighborhood taking its garden back. By noon the chairs were full. Kids darted between hedges while parents whispered about audits and lawsuits, and how they'd missed so much right under their noses. Emily appeared at 12:45 in deep blue, the shade her mother wore to our 25th. No veil. No fanfare. She walked through the arch like it had always belonged to her. Because now it did. A retired judge kept it brief. Words about restoration. About building twice to prove it was worth fighting for. When Emily spoke, the crowd leaned in. I never asked for special treatment, she said softly. I asked for permission to grieve and celebrate in the same space. That was taken. What's been returned is more than a garden. It's proof that accountability is still possible. Even here. No one clapped. They didn't need to. The silence she'd earned was louder than any cheer. Lena arrived just before the food tables, jeans and windbreaker, no official hat. She handed me a small envelope. Interim oversight of Willow Creek HOA authorized for 90 days. Full financial review underway. Deborah Hargrove disqualified from board service pending civil resolution. Lacey's LLC under secondary investigation for fraudulent contracting. I folded the letter and slipped it away. Peace? I asked. Lena smiled. Pause. You bought them time for real reform. Whether it sticks depends on the next vote. Later, when the sun dipped low and the magnolias opened early, Emily found me under the arch, one hand on the welded bolt. You built it better, she said. I nodded. Built it permanent. We didn't speak much after that. Just stood there while the garden filled with real laughter instead of whispers behind rule books. For the first time in years, Willow Creek felt like it belonged to the people who lived in it, not the titles on a letterhead. Deborah's house went on the market 3 days later. Rumors of settlements and sealed deals floated around, but none of it mattered. The board wasn't the power anymore. The people were. And somewhere out there in other HOAs across the country, other quiet dads and moms are watching this unfold, wondering if their story could end the same way. So tell me, was Deborah Hargrove really just a strict HOA president enforcing the rules for the collective good? Or was she the real rule-breaker who finally got exactly what the bylaws always promised? Right or wrong? Drop your verdict below. I'll be reading every single one.